Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. All right, I have Karen Stephenson with me today. She has got a massive background in a variety of business subjects and something I've never even heard of before, network science. Welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, give us some background on you. You've been everywhere, you know everybody, but give our audience an idea of the depth you bring to the table.
Well, I suppose my modern training in the early days was around quantum chemistry and physics, so I'm a math science girl. Mm-hmm. But then I also got another degree in art history, and then I got my PhD in anthropology from Harvard. So I kind of bring together a lot of these different disciplines.
You have worked for just about everybody at the highest levels, whether it's the CIA, the Pentagon, Department of Defense, and things of that nature. One of the questions that I really want to know is this network science. What is it? How does it work? How do people use it to their benefit?
You know, when I started in the field, there was no network science, or it wasn't called that. It was just looking at the mathematics of how things are connected. But the more and more people looked at things, including myself, the more we realized that there is mathematics, or a science, that really describes how things are connected. Mm-hmm. Not just people, also animals, also in biological systems, how things are connected. And you can look at chemical systems and physical systems.
I've done a little work with that kind of theory myself, mm-hmm. and I found it to be true. It seems to me, tell me if your studies have come through with the same studies that mine have, and that everything is really connected in the universe.
Everything is connected.
Okay, so there is the butterfly effect.
Yeah, and what's interesting about people is that we're not just connected. I mean, we can be connected through technology and things like that, but humans are connected through something that we, for lack of a better word, call trust. And the way that we trust one another really operates without boundaries, without geographical boundaries.
So vibration theory figures into that?
Probably.
Okay. Network analytics and using them through business today. Tell me about that.
Well, if you look at how people are connected, they're either connected or not, and around different divisions or departments. And so if you apply network analytics to understand how people are connected, then you can determine whether or not people are really being effective at their job. You can look at key performance indicators about what makes some people influencers and others not. So there's a lot of different ways you can look at people that have nothing to do with the organizational chart.
How do you start to differentiate people that are more connected and more productive through your studies? How does that work?
Well, we may be created equally. I don't know if that's really true, but there's a saying like that. But we're certainly not connected equally. Okay. So when you are looking at the connections that people have, you can quantify that, and then we each kind of have a different sort of score, if you will, about the way that we're connected.
Is that a question of evolution in how far evolved we are on one level or another, or is it an answer that would come to you because of education, being able to learn how to better be connected?
Well, I think there was a tipping point when the social media platforms emerged onto the scene, because I looked at how people were connected before there was social media and after social media. I suppose we should have a new demarcation of time around that, because social media expanded exponentially our ability to connect in digital ways with each other, not mm-hmm. just personal ways. The way that you and I are sitting here at the table is one way of connecting, but you can be connected to so many other people, of course, through trace digital data, like LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that.
Well, that's why I asked you about the vibration theory, because there's a theory. I mean, you're onto a topic that I really have studied a little bit myself, and being able to connect with other people through, some people call it a psychic sense, or just an ability to understand how you can connect with people anywhere through your intuition or your spiritualism. Does any of those studies go into your science?
Well, yes. Not too many people talk about that, but I don't mind talking about it because there is a way. You know, the Russians actually started looking at this research very early. But Albert Einstein first called it spooky at a distance, the way that things are connected. And he was looking at the electronic spins. And then the mathematician Bell proved it in the 1950s. And then Russians were starting to do some of the experiments on this. And what this is that the electronic spins, if you fire electrons out, they should be going in different directions. They align with each other, which means they're somehow connected to each other and they're communicating. So if electrons can do that, don't you think people can too? Because that's what we're comprised of.
Do you do work on remote viewing, things of that nature?
Yes, I do some, but I'm mostly just familiar with the work, and I try to make myself more knowledgeable about the work, because I look specifically at large projects like large companies, communities. I look at legacy firms, for example, really large ones that are over 100 years old. They're very interesting.
That's really interesting to be able to take this science and bring it into the corporate world or even the government world.
Oh, yeah, the government's very interesting. You know, I actually collected a lot of the data at the Pentagon in August of 2001. And then 9/11 happened, and the government asked for my data back, and I said, of course, and I gave it all back. I was looking at how people were connected, and then what happened is that a few months later, the government gave me my data back, and they said to me, Dr. Stephenson, you can use this work and show it to your other clients as long as you tell your clients to learn the lesson that we painfully learned, and that is how not to become a bureaucracy. Because they asked me to do the forensic analysis on those connections in the Pentagon, and I could find out where that little piece of paper that said planes will fly into buildings, it didn't make it from one division to another.
So I'm gonna keep going down this path. I mean, you and I have, as you know from our conversation now, can talk about this for a long time. Empathic processes, do they figure into your science also?
Well, I think it's actually part of the science, yes. The answer is yes. I think there's so much that we don't know. Because we're not creating a science, the science is already there. All humans are doing is because of the advances that we make in mathematics and technology, we're able to peek under the covers just a little bit more. And with each passing decade, we get better and better at it. So we see more things. But there's an underlying structure going on there all the time.
I wanted to find out on your theory also, because there is a theory out there that we're really never learning anything. We're just remembering it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that were true.
So our DNA is actually coming back to life.
Well, when you think of all of our DNA and the fact that it exists as matter, and that matter is in a very large universe that has already been expanding, there must be some memory in these atoms and cells that we have. It could be.
I want to get back on track, because you've got me going down a passion point of my own, and I want to stay with you. Corporate life. How do you use this? Because yes, it's one thing to go down the road and understand each other and become a more evolved human, but there's also the almighty dollar. How do people use this to be more productive, therefore more profitable and streamlined in their business processes?
Well, most of the problems that corporations encounter have to do with who might be the next leader, how do we collaborate more effectively, how do we get people to communicate. And you cannot legislate trust. You cannot say, you will trust me. You can't do that. So you have to provide some type of analysis and then opportunity for people to generate trust with each other. And then when you do the network analysis, you can track the traces of trust using this methodology.
What's your favorite?
What?
Generating trust.
Generating trust.
How do you do that?
Well, many organizations try different things. I don't really know all of the answers around how to generate trust. All I know is that if trust is there, we can see it because we can track it using network analytics.
So would that be try to be as genuine as you can to help generate the trust? Or is there some other science behind that? Because other people do neuro-linguistic studies, blah, blah, blah.
There's a lot of science about this. And of course, a lot of it, when you analyze the networks that people have, they see that it lights up in your limbic area of the brain. So there's certainly a lot of knowledge around that that's just waiting to be discovered and expanded. I am not a neuroscientist, so I can't speak to it. I just know about the results that they're seeing.
You've been a great guest. I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Mine too. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.